Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to take a look at a game by the name of Tempel des Schreckens. That would translate to something like Temple of Horror or Temple of Terror. And this is a game designed by Yusuke Sato, and it's a re-implementation of a game that he's designed by the name of Time Bomb. I believe it was also republished as Don't Mess with Cthulhu in the US. But this is a version of it with slightly different rules. I believe it's only currently available in Germany by Schmidt-Spiel. You could import it from Amazon.de or any other game site you would import the games from. And it's a social deduction game. Box says ages 8 and up. I think you could probably go a little bit lower with that if you have adults to guide the play. And it plays from 3 to 10 players in about 15 minutes or so, depending on your player count. So it's a very quick game. It's a social deduction game, which is not typically a genre that I'm in love with, but I'm going to show you how it plays and come back and let you know what I think about it. So Tempel des Schreckens is a social deduction game in which players are going to be taking on one of two roles, and they're represented by these cards. So each player is going to get one of these cards and keep it secret throughout the game, and they are the adventurers who are trying to invade a temple and get the gold, or the guardians who are trying to protect that gold from getting stolen. And you're going to set up a certain number of adventurer cards and guardian cards based on the number of players. There's a setup card. And you'll also then take a number of cards based on the number of players. So there's going to be 5 cards per players, and you're going to use the 3 different types of cards. I'll show you those right here. So essentially there are empty chambers, so you'll take the number of empty chambers for the number of players. You'll take the number of gold cards shown for the number of players, and the number of fire traps shown for the number of players. So in this case it would be 12, 6, and 2 for a 4-player game. And you will shuffle those up, and you'll deal those out, so you will have 5 cards per player, regardless of the number of players that you're playing. Then each player is also going to get one of those roll cards, and so in a 3-player game, you know that you're going, or I'm sorry, in a 4-player game, you know that you're going to have a possibility of up to 3 adventurers and up to 2 guardians. So there'll definitely be a guardian, but there may be 2, and the other players will be adventurers. So after you deal out the cards, each player is going to take a moment to look at their cards so they know what are on their cards, and then they'll shuffle them and redistribute them in front of them like this. So each player will do that. So essentially they're each going to know the possibilities of the cards in front of them, so how many fire traps, how many gold, and how many empty chambers they have, but they will not know which one is where. So if I was this player, let's see, okay, I have a guardian, so you can see here the guardian, and you can see here I have 2 of the gold here. So I would know that. I just shuffle up these and place those in front of me. And you'll have a random start player, so let's just say I'm the start player. Now, this game encourages open table talk. It's a social deduction game. So you could tell other players, you know, what you have, what you don't have. So since I'm a guardian, and as we remember here, I had 2 gold cards and 3 empty chambers, what I probably want to do is prevent people from looking into these, because there's essentially a few things that could happen as a game end condition. The adventurers are going to win if they manage to find all of the gold cards. So as we remember here, in a 4-player game there are 6 gold cards among these 20 cards. And the guardians are going to win if one of 2 things happen. First of all, if the adventurers find both of the fire traps, the guardians will win immediately. Or if at the end of 4 rounds the adventurers have not found all of the gold cards, the guardians will win. So those are essentially the 2 endgame conditions where the guardian wins. The adventurers will win if they find all the gold. So as the guardian, I want to prevent, essentially here, from the other players from looking in my cards. So what I might say is, well, I only have empty spaces, so there'd be no incentive to come over here. Or I might say, I have a fire trap here, so you might want to pick somebody else's card. But generally, I don't want somebody to pick my card. But in any case, since I have the key, what I'll have to do is I'll have to pick somebody else's card. So somebody might tell me I have a fire trap. Now, if I was not a very shrewd guardian, I might just immediately pick that, hoping to find the fire trap. But that would probably arouse suspicion on the part of the other players. So there's going to be some real, like, double thinking going on here. So maybe this player would say, oh, I have a gold here and no traps, so maybe I would pick one of their cards. So what I'll do is I'll put the key in front of their space, flip over that card, and look, we found the gold. Now it would be this player's turn to pick a card from another player. So they might choose, this one here, and it flips up, and now this player will pick one, and they could pick the same player if they trust this player. And this will largely be based upon the table talk. Maybe this player will go back here. They found another gold, so they've got 2 of their 6 gold, and maybe this player picks this player. And it's not necessary that, actually, now that 4 cards have been picked, because we have 4 players, that will end the round. So every 4 cards will end a round, and what happens at the round end is all the cards get taken and reshuffled, and then re-dealt out to players. So this could happen before a player has had anything picked from them. It could happen that one player has run out of cards for the round, and so on. So this player would retain the key, and they'd be the first one to pick next round. But essentially what we would do is we would deal out these cards again. But now, because 4 of them have been taken, each player is only going to have 4 cards. So you can see the information that players are going to be able to give is going to shrink over the course of the game. The chance of finding a gold or a fire trap is going to increase over the course of the game. So again, here, I'm the guardian player, and I look at my cards, and now I have a fire trap. So I might say, oh look, I have a gold here, and this player say, and again, I would shuffle these up after looking at them, and maybe this player would look here, doesn't get the gold, and then, maybe I'll pick this player's here, and I say, there's a 1 in 3 chance of finding my gold, and they might go and pick this one, then, because I've tricked them, and find a fire trap. So, they would probably know at this point that I am one of the guardians, but, again, we'd be halfway there as the guardian team to ending the game. So at this point, essentially, they would have to, before the 4 rounds ended, so until 16 cards are drawn, they would have to find the other 4 gold without coming up with the other fire trap. If they do that, they'll win. Otherwise, the guardians would win. And that is basically how you're going to play Temple of Schreckens. Alright, so that is Tempel des Schreckens. And again, like I said at the start of this review, I'm not typically a huge fan of these social deduction games. I find that a lot of them drag on a little bit long, or just get convoluted if you have a lot of cards with special powers or whatnot. And probably at this point, my favorite might be One Night Ultimate Werewolf, just because it's so brief and I could just play 1 or 2 rounds and be done with it. Or beyond that, I tend to like the deduction games that have a social element, something like Heimlich and Company, or something like Abandoned Ship. So games where you're actually rolling, moving a piece, and you're observing how other players are actually playing and trying to figure out, what a hidden roll might be. So games that are just largely based on player interaction without much to go on, I tend to be a little bit less enthusiastic about. But I will say that this is a game that I rather like. I've played it, now maybe half dozen times, or maybe a few more than that, and I find that it works very well. I've played it with as few as 3 players, with as many as 8 players, and it has a surprising amount of interaction and a surprising amount of doubt about what other players are doing at any of those player counts I've played it at. So it's a game that seems like it has practically no rules whatsoever. It's like literally just flip a card, see if you got the right thing. Is somebody lying? Isn't somebody lying? But somehow out of this very small rule set, there emerges a lot of rooms for deception. Especially if you're playing as one of the guardians, you have a lot of strategic ability to determine when you should start lying, when you should, when you should tell the truth. Trying to figure out how many other people might be on your team and using that information. There's a lot to go on there. And it's a game that's surprisingly tense for something that's so simple. Just because you really are, because of the simplicity of the rule set, you really are just focusing on other players. So even though this is not particularly a genre game that I like, it's one that I think works very well. Now, I will say that compared with Time Bomb and Don't Mess with Cthulhu, which I haven't played those, I looked up the rules, and this one has, at any player count, even if you're playing with as few as 3 players, there's always going to be more than one of those fire traps in the game, which seems to me, just having played this version, like a major improvement over those games, which end immediately if one of those trap cards gets turned up. There's only one of those trap cards to be turned up, in fact, in those versions of those games, as far as I know. Again, I haven't played those. So because of that, there's more room for players to bluff. And also there's a chance, that you could finger somebody early as a guardian and then try to stay away from them. But because the number of cards keeps dwindling over the course of the game, they might end up with a gold. And even if you find one of those traps, you end up in a situation where you might have to take the guardian at their word. If they're claiming they have a gold in front of them, you need one more gold. So, in sum, I think this is a terrific game. I would... there are English rules available on Board Game Geek. Somebody's done a translation of them, and the components are pretty much language independent. There's only a few words in there in German. Otherwise, the cards are just pictures, so I wouldn't let that be a barrier for you. It's a terrific game. It's relatively inexpensive. It is Tempel des Schreckens, and those are my thoughts on it. So, thanks for watching.